All right, so this first one is the man whose name is almost the name of something on a menu at a Mexican restaurant. Edgar Rice Burroughs. Oh, this made me so hungry to...
I mean, rice over and over?
I caught you in a loophole. You didn't ask me if there was a burrito in my pocket, you idiot. You stupid idiot.
Damn it. I'm only allowed to ask 3 questions. I have to pick one food item.
And now you have to wander the desert for 20 years without any hand sanitizer.
Why wouldn't it have been a burrito? Why wouldn't it? I should pick burrito.
To keep in mind for this story, I don't know about your people, but I learned from this. I don't know about you
Describe my facial expression when you said that.
You made as if I had just said the word Mexican restaurant very enunciatedly, much like Donald Trump.
Mexican.
Because the burrito came from Mexico. I don't know about the authors you covered, but mine, it turned out authors are not successful. Like, none of mine were like, oh, I grew up and I wanted to be an author. Like, these were all unsuccessful people that had to write because that was all they had to do.
I didn't necessarily have that, but okay. I'm interested in you telling the story.
Okay, so keep this in mind. Edgar Rice Burroughs was a failure who didn't know what he ever wanted to do with his life.
Cool.
So for most of his life, that is. He was born September 1st, 1875 in Chicago, but his life was constant moving and restarting, like all the time. As a kid, he changed school 6 times. Oof. Here's where we talk about diseases, usually due to disease outbreaks. So the next Edgar Rice Burroughs is coming. So one time during a diphtheria epidemic, he got moved into the only private school in his neighborhood, which was an all-girls school.
Hey, Edgarina. What?
You want to come shake my hand? I've got diphtheria. Then in 1891, influenza outbreak hit Chicago, so he left the state completely and went to live on his brother's cattle farm in Idaho, and then met cow disease. With school being a bust, like, you're not gonna learn school in Idaho, which is what the sign says when you drive in.
Schooling's for Nevada.
You want to learn something? Get to South Dakota.
Can I pet that dog?
While he was in Idaho, he basically became a cowboy on his brother's farm, an emphasis on boy because he was like 15 years old. And he spent most of his time with other cowboys and murderers because this was just, it was a year after Idaho actually became a state, so it was still the Wild West.
It was basically Australia?
Yeah, it was Australia now. We always, even in an outbreak, we're still finding made up ways to make fun of Australia.
I'll be like my dying breath, like, oh, what about Australia?
Goodbye. So he spent about half a year here in Idaho, but a war started brewing between the cow people and the sheep people.
Say that sentence again. Slow.
A war started brewing between the cow people and the sheep people, which led to his first story. The cow people versus the sheep people, which is ridiculous. Even for Idaho.
That there's a separation between the two, right?
Yeah, no, it was two different, like his brother was part of the cow people, and then whoever else was part of the sheep people.
I wouldn't think about being a sheep people.
That's gross. I'll be here with this cow.
Moo moo.
Not ba-ba. Moo moo. His parents didn't want him being a part of that world anymore, so they sent him back to school to Phillips Academy in Andover, Massachusetts. He failed at this and was expelled, so then he went to Michigan Military Academy in Orchard Lake, where he tried to drop out in his first year. The cows, they call me. They wouldn't let him, so he stuck on, and he managed to become a trick rider there and an ace shot.
What's a trick rider?
Like what you were telling me your grandpa did with ropes, but like I assume that like he would be on a horse doing rope tricks, or maybe he made the...
Oh, I see.
I don't know, maybe he was prostituting horses.
Or a rider.
Rider, not writer. No.
Rider.
He was not writing. He was never a writer. He was always a writer.
I've already established that. He was a writer, though.
He graduated from this 1895, and he was hired as a teacher because he had applied to get into West Point, and he failed to get in. So now he had no idea what to do with his life, so teaching... I'll just do that. Why not?
Those who can't write.
Those who can't ride, join the sheep people. Teaching, it turned out, was also not his thing. So after a year, he decided to join the military. And thinking he could advance really quickly if he did something really heroic, he requested to be placed in the most dangerous place he could. So he was rejected by the Rough Riders, which was it Teddy Roosevelt?
Yeah, Teddy Roosevelt's Bang Bang Shoot.
His Bang Bang Shoot Club. His trick riders that overtook Cuba. So he was rejected by the Rough Riders. He ended up being placed in the 7th U.S. Cavalry, which was Custer's cavalry, but this was post-Custer.
Okay. No Custer cavalry.
Not Custard, Custer, not Rider, Rider.
Got it.
Wait a minute.
It's custard, isn't it?
I've got custard in my pocket. I'm sorry. I've been holding out on you. So he was stationed at Fort Grant in Arizona, where he said his job was to chase the Apaches.
And once you caught them, sir?
Well, here's the thing. He said, I chased a good many Apaches, but fortunately for me, I never caught up with any of them. He would have been killed immediately.
Yeah, they would have made a toy of killing you.
So in reality, he was mostly just digging ditches and patrols, where I don't think he actually saw any Apache, but this didn't work out for him either, because while he was there, he found out he had a heart murmur, which prevented him from being promoted any further in the military. So he had his rich Civil War veteran of a daddy pull some strings, and he got him discharged in 1897. So he's constantly plugging, looking like, all right, am I going to make money here?
This is the thing.
Yeah, this is it. I think I can make money doing this.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, golly, no.
Oh, no, it's hard. Now he decided to try his luck again in Idaho, where the war was over.
Yeah.
Sheep bodies everywhere.
School's burning all the time.
School is out forever in Idaho. The sheep people and the cow people made up their differences.
Yeah.
Is there another alarm? I feel like I keep hearing alarms. If you hear my alarm go off again,
I'll signal you.
Yeah. Just come and tap me on the shoulder and then give me a quick nibble on the cheek.
If you could whisper lovingly into my ear that
Into
your
my
alarm
nose.
is going off.
Can you just breathe in my nose when my alarm's going?
National Guardman, will you tell Daniel that his alarm is going off?
Shoot. So he's back to Idaho, and now he was trying all sorts of businesses. All of them failed. Every single one. He ran a stationery store, a dry goods store. He was an accountant. He did some more cow stuff. None of it worked. So in 1899, he moved back to Chicago, where he went to work at his daddy's company, the American Battery Company. And that's not battery like assault and battery like what I have in my pockets right now. I actually do have batteries in my pockets.
They're like potato batteries.
During this time, he met and married a woman named Emma Centenia Holbert.
Okay.
But by
Is that 3 women or what?
Oh, no.
It was Idaho.
There's no I in marriage in Idaho. There is us. Us to hoe.
I'm avoiding a hoe joke, so I want you to
Like
appreciate
HOE?
my class.
By 1903,
Ew.
he got bored of working in batteries. So they moved once again to Idaho. They're always going back to Idaho, where he worked at the Schuster Burroughs Mining Company. I think he started with his brothers.
Yeah.
Oh, as a gold miner with his brothers. So he was a gold miner with his brothers, and then you're going to like this. He was a railway cop.
What? Like a bull?
What?
Not a bull.
Yeah,
a
now
bull.
I'm really confused. What's a bull?
A bull is a guy who
A bull is a guy who can't.
he like watches a rail yard and makes sure that nobody's hopping on.
That must have been him. He was bully, whatever you're talking about.
He could not be a bull, but yeah. So
Or
he's
he
a railroad cop. Go ahead.
Yeah, he's a railroad cop for
cop.
the Oregon Short Line Railroad Company in Salt Lake City.
Did he watch the station or he was on the train as it was moving? Because that's different.
Listen, Greg, there's a pandemic going on. You think I had time to go to Salt Lake City like I always do to get information?
It doesn't matter.
I don't
Go
know.
ahead.
They didn't go into details because I don't think he talked a lot about this part of his life because it was constant failure. So
right.
why would
He probably shot a guy and was like, can't do this.
Then he got bored again and moved back to Chicago, where he ran the stenographic department at Sears.
At where?
Sears.
Not being shut closed with a fire instrument,
which
the
they would use
department
to
store.
brand
the
their
cows.
bulls, but not the cop who worked at the railway. He was also an ad man at Burroughs and Dentzer, again,
Okay.
a company he must have started, an office manager at a physicians cooperative, a door-to-door salesman at the State Burroughs Company, a manager at the System Service Bureau, a snake oil salesman selling an alcohol cure.
Were like job fairs like buffets back then? Like
I
you
don't
just
think-
show up like, okay, I guess you could try everything.
Look, you make the joke of, did you circle it in the newspaper?
Oh yeah.
Which I believe I wrote for you.
Oh,
but
God.
must have just been like, hey, need a job? Come here and you
Come
have
here.
one.
I have a long resume. It's not for this though. It's for literally everything else.
What's your experience? Well, I served under Custer, not the ice cream. I was a bull, not the animal. So then finally, by 1911, he had failed at so many things and still didn't know what he was meant to do with his life.
Yeah.
He applied to the Chinese army, the army from China. So he applied to fight in the Chinese army. You guessed it, he was rejected once
No.
again.
Why? Because he's not Chinese?
Look, I'll use my limited Chinese. They told him booyah. Booyah, Lao Wai. So then he moved on to his next job, running the ad department for a pencil sharpener company.
Jeez.
I mean, this is so many people's lives of like people who want to get rich quick, or just like people who, I don't know, but like
Are not skilled at anything and have no ambition other than to just like
make money.
have an ambition.
Yeah. So he was 35 years old, and I mean, could you even imagine? Could you
Not having a stable job at 35, can you imagine how
sitting in the park with his much younger and taller friend,
pockets full of French fries?
allegedly. So he was 35 years old. He had a pregnant wife and 2 kids already, Joan and John, and eventually Holbert was the other kid. These Crazy name. So no money, dead-end job, no prospects. He was pawning jewelry just to get by.
Wow.
Pawn, like, not like the chess game that I'm crushing you
at right now.
So
only pawns left, by the way. That's my move. Is I let you kill royalty, and then I take you over with the pawn.
I have a special rule where everything jumps over the pawns. I give up my queen. I give up my king.
I have a special rule where I pocket some of Greg's.
So his life needed to change, and by that I mean he needed money and no more dead-end jobs, but he didn't know how. He didn't know how to do this. Part of his duties at the pencil sharpener company was that he had to make sure his ads were properly placed in the magazines they were printed in, and these were mostly pulp, sci-fi sorts of magazines.
Yeah.
So he had a lot of downtime at his job, so with all these magazines that are around, he started reading them, and it hit him. He said,
I could fail at this now.
He said, if people were paid for writing rot such as I read in some of those magazines, I could write stories just as rotten. Yeah, exactly.
What a Ramon's philosophy of
I could do bad all by myself.
I could be bad but better.
I could do good bad. Writing wasn't completely new to him because just for fun, he would make up poems and fantasy stories to tell his children and his nieces and
He also wrote tricks too.
Greg, do I need to get the homonym dictionary out? Because I have that in my pocket. I've got huge pockets.
A big pocket.
I just wear a pocket with 2 leg holes in it. They're Mahout pants, really. But he never did anything that he seriously thought about. Just like, I'll write this stupid thing and tell it to my stupid kids. Knowing that writing was a potential revenue stream that he hadn't attempted before, he thought, I'm going to give this a try. So to try to maximize his chances, he decided to center his story around something that was very popular at the time, influenza. Mars.
Okay.
They had just discovered canals on Mars, so it was a big topic of interest.
I feel like of the 4 writers we're going to talk about, 3 of them were maybe obsessed with Mars. I don't know if yours is obsessed with Mars. My 2 are for sure obsessed with Mars.
He was definitely obsessed with Mars, and rightfully so. This story he wrote, he wrote half of a story. It was called Under the Moons of Mars. Okay. So he covered not just the moon, but also Mars. Yeah. Where he introduced his first major contribution to the world, the character of John Carter.
Right.
A Confederate soldier who got teleported to Mars by the sheer power of his racism.
What am I going to do with all this racism?
Whoa. What are you people? I hate you.
I don't like the cut of your jib or the color of your skin.
Mostly both.
What do you believe? I bet it's stupid.
You're not Jewish, are you? So many people consider this story to be the inspiration for Superman. That racist guy. By the way, I don't know if John Carter was racist, but he was a Confederate. I've never read a John Carter story, but come on, a Confederate soldier gets...
He doesn't just flip a switch.
I mean, travel does enlighten you, so maybe if you really travel.
God, to enslave Mars.
To
become rich off the backs of Martians.
People consider, like I was saying, they consider this to be the inspiration for Superman.
Yeah.
Because, a guy goes to another planet, becomes like a savior, basically, which this Superman came out 26 years after this. 26 years. So he sent this half of a story to the editor of All Story magazine to ask if this was into this sort of thing. So he asked...
Depends who wrote it. Oh, jeez.
So he asked if this was the sort of thing that this magazine would buy, and if he said no to him, that would have been the end of his writing career. He's like, all right, can't make money. I'm gonna go. Maybe I can sell water balloons.
Yeah.
So fortunately, the guy said, it has potential, but if you finish it, I'll buy it from you. So he did. He finished the story. Under the Moons of Mars came out serialized in the February to July 1912 issues of All Story magazine. He got paid $400.
Oh, wow.
And when it was published as a book later, it was called A Princess of Mars. That was considered to be a major turning point for science fiction.
Really?
So he has a hit right off the bat.
Yeah.
His first thing he ever wrote seriously.
He must have not known how to respond to that. He must have sat alone for a long time.
I'm doing well at my job.
We're going to give you $400. We can't wait to see what you come up with next. Are you firing me?
Is that my severance package? Because my next job is going to be something in construction. So it's not only crazy that a writer's first thing is like a huge hit, but a writer who had failed at so much stuff is now doing well. So
which seems to be like every writer since then has followed that model.
Every single writer has been greatly successful right off the bat. So now it's time for a second one. For his next story, he really wanted to write a historical fiction tale set in Old England.
With a Confederate soldier.
Robert E. Lee got transported to jolly old England. Not so jolly anymore now, is it? So the magazine editors were like, no, give us pulp. We want space. We want weird stuff. He wrote another space thing called Deja Thoris, Martian Princess, which he felt was so weird that he was worried his publisher would think he was insane. So he sent it in under the fake name Normal Bean.
Say the name again?
Normal Bean.
Wow.
As in, my brain's normal.
It's Bean. Don't check me.
Don't you dare send me to a doctor. So he eventually changed it to Norman Bean. And then at one point he also used John Tyler McCullough for some, I don't know what sort of, what's that pun?
It's almost like, oh, yeah, normal beans a joke. My name is... The name that you just said that I don't remember.
John Tyler McCullough. Oh, no.
That's a normal name too, right?
No, John Tyler McCullough's popular, and no one wants Edgar Rice.
I'm John Paul Jones.
I'm Davy Jones. So that was the name for this second story. So now for his third one, he wanted to do something a little different. Something closer to home than Mars, but still different and exotic from a place that might as well have been Mars for him, and how likely it was he had ever been there.
Just past Idaho.
Anywhere outside of Salt Lake City, Idaho, or Chicago.
Where?
Africa.
Okay.
Mother Africa. In the October 1912 issue of All Story, which was just 3 months after the Mars story wrapped up its run, he had his new serial, Tarzan of the Apes.
Was this at all influenced by...
They just discovered canals in Africa.
Yeah, and they're just like, dude, we got it. What could be in there?
Yeah, yeah, must have been Africa in the news, and he's like, I could do that. So he sold this one for $700,
cool.
and even more so than the Mars story, this one was huge.
Yeah.
So they shopped this one around as a book, but for some reason people kept saying no until 1914 when it finally came out as a book, and this thing blew up like nothing had ever blown up before.
Right. This was the Beatlemania of the 20s or
teens.
Teens,
the early teens. Yeah, it was, everyone had their Tarzan wigs on, which they kind of did.
They would literally drop a book on the ground, and it would just girls screaming at it.
Yeah.
Crying, yeah.
So people bought this story up like they had an ape man deficiency, like it was toilet paper during a coronavirus outbreak. Hey,
am I right? Oh boy.
Oh, let me eat these.
I haven't washed my butt in 9 days.
Which is barely longer than I normally do. So he wrote sequels to Tarzan. In all, there were 24 sequels to Tarzan.
Are you going to at some point talk about... You'll probably get to you reading Tarzan, right?
No, I didn't, but we could talk about it.
Okay.
The ending of Tarzan made me cry.
Like, yeah, you were like like up a little bit.
It was... Okay, so here's the thing, which I kind of get to a little bit later. His books are so readable because they were serials. So it's like every 3 chapters will basically end with like a cliffhanger or this huge plot point, and you'll want to keep reading because that's how pulp works.
And that's what makes pulp so wonderful and accessible, is that it's not weighed down by describing the decorative arches of like the columns of a building. It's just like we're here and we go and we're here.
We'll kind of get into what is art a little bit later, but like this isn't, like I'm not reading like Henry David Thoreau describing a winter for 40 pages. This is so readable, and we'll get into the the problematic nature of Tarzan.
For sure.
But the story of it is so...
People like what we're doing. Hi.
Tarzan
fans.
By the way, there's people coming up behind you also. This is making me so nervous.
Yeah.
What was I talking about before?
We were talking about art versus
all of
pulp.
Our fans found us. There was so much snuck into that story that was so much more heartbreaking than I ever expected from Tarzan.
You kind of just thought like he bangs his chest and you're Jane and I'm Tarzan.
Exactly, which I was fully prepared for. If that's all the book was, I would have been happy, but there was so much more to it. It's understandable why this became so popular, because it had a little bit more going for it than like the story of the killer.
How dare you? Were you taken aback reading about, having read Tarzan, having felt something by Tarzan, and then reading how he failed at everything? Were you like...
No, I kind of like that, because with both of my authors, maybe this is just hope for myself of like, he didn't write his first thing till he was 35.
Yeah, and he ate it for a long time in his life, and he thought that was the end. And then Anna Lark was like, I can write about an ape man.
It kind of was a little bit disheartening of like, oh, you were only doing this for money. I don't know if you enjoyed this, but you could do this and you could make money off of this, which is kind of like, oh, but where's the, like, who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah.
And you found an audience, and the audience is still talking about you.
Good.
And it's good.
So,
that James M. Cain hated, I think he hated all of his pulp stories, but that's all anyone wanted to read. Like, no one remembers anything he wrote other than that.
Yeah, I like that more so than a writer who's too precious about the craft, which is a great pulp story. Okay, so this was a huge hit. There were Tarzan costumes, there were Tarzan bathing suits, there was Tarzan ice cream, Tarzan toilet paper, which
it's just leaves.
I can't bear myself to open that package. It's a collector's item.
Yeah, I'll just take a bunch of showers.
Just leaves, old leaves. So there was a daily Tarzan comic strip in newspapers worldwide. There was a Tarzan radio show that starred his daughter Joan as Jane.
Really?
With her husband playing Tarzan.
Oh, that's great. They didn't put it on.
What do you mean?
They weren't like broadcasting out of their house. They found like 2 people randomly.
During the epidemic they were.
They went to a park every week.
And they recorded. They were 6 feet apart.
In some area of the valley. I don't know what it's called though.
Hey, be quiet. Ooh, a topless man is walking by. Let's just ogle all the people.
I know. Whoa! Like a Tex Avery character just hitting my head with a mallet.
So this was the first fictional character to...
What?
Sorry, there's an airplane. Sorry, people aren't respecting the rules of travel right now.
That's how far I need you to be away from me is helicopter distance.
So this was the first fictional character to really become a branded sensation like this. It was pre-Zorro, and like I said, it was decades before Superman. So this was the first big thing.
Yeah.
Biggest of all were the movies. The first attempt at a movie of Burroughs stuff was 1970s The Lady and the Lion by the Selig Polyscope Company, which are two things that will never be remembered. Also, when I read 1917, I was thinking about the movie, like what was going on in the movie 1917, and then meanwhile in Hollywood, The Lady and the Lion by the Selig Polyscope Company.
Are you sure this lion skin thing fits me well?
Don't mind that face paint. Sure, it's offensive, but it's also toxic.
This won't be offensive till we're dead.
Which will be soon. But the first Tarzan movie was a 1918 silent by the National Film Corporation of America starring Elmo Lincoln, which was Abraham Lincoln's forgotten son. More of a puppet than a son. It premiered on Broadway in downtown Los Angeles and became the first movie ever to make $1 million.
Wow, really?
Yeah, so the talkie versions, they made so many of these movies. The talkie versions were starring Olympian Johnny Weissmuller, who we've talked about in the 30s through the 40s. In all, they've made 41 Tarzan movies, which Burroughs hated.
He hated all the movies? Or
very
he hated
quickly,
that they were making
very
movies?
quickly. Okay, the man who's doing this just for money is not going to hate that they're making movies.
True.
But I think, the first he was on board for a little bit, but like after a while he started hating it.
Yeah.
There were 57 Tarzan TV episodes also so far.
Yeah.
Once my pilot gets sold, there will be 57
Tarzan
and a
in New
half.
York?
Tarzan during the coronavirus, which is all I've been working on. So what this meant for Burroughs was that his new job was a full-time writer, and his money problems were over for now.
Right.
With all this new money lying around and all these TV, movie things and radio shows being made in Los Angeles, he figures, why not? Why am I not living in Los Angeles?
Cut off the middleman, which is Idaho.
Cut off the middleman, which is a game we used to play in Idaho when we would butcher the sheep people.
Today, as the middleman, oh no, my name was pulled from a bag of rocks.
Yeah, because they didn't have paper. Idiots. You Idaho idiot. You're almost as stupid as the people from Australia. This happened in 1919 when he bought 550 acres of land in the San Fernando Valley from none other than our old friend of the LA Times, Harrison Gray Otis.
You're kidding.
That's who he bought the land for. This land was
You're that Tarzan guy? I hate it.
I believe he's a commie. This land was in the hills above the southern end of what is now Reseda Boulevard, and under Otis it was called Rancho del Cabrillo. With his enormous mansion on the property, the house was called Miraflores, which is how Dracula would say it, I guess.
Rancho de Dracula.
Rancho de Dracula. So under Burroughs, it would be renamed in honor of where all this money came from. John Carter of Mars Ranch. No. Come on. Come on.
Right,
you just
yokes.
I'm yoking. I'm making a yoke. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Tarzana Ranch.
Yeah.
So it cost
Never heard of it.
It cost him $125,000, which is an insane number both then and today, but for different reasons. And it was worth it. The property went all the way up the hill. Basically, it like kind of stretched into Malibu. Like this is a massive amount of land. There were gardens, and it was also like all done for him because Otis had made it all. So it was like,
you just step right up. Yeah, it's fully furnished.
Step right up. There were gardens, orchards, horses, pigs, cows. No sheep. Chickens.
Clearly, lines were drawn in the sand a long time ago.
I'll be goddamn rootin' tootin' hell if there's a sheep in my property. All of them were branded with a Tarzan symbol.
You're kidding.
So they knew that what the property was. Ow. So
it's more of a King Kong brand.
It also said that there were registered goats, which I assume means goats that had to go door to door when they moved in to tell all their neighbors that they were goats. I don't know what they meant by that.
I hate to disturb you, and this is very uncomfortable, but I'm a goat. I'm going to probably eat everything around you. So
I can't live within 30 feet of a haystack. So the house itself had 20 rooms, including a ballroom, a huge library, and a dining hall. Every Friday, he'd invite the staff who worked on the estate and all of his neighbors to come over to watch a movie. And about 200 people would come every single week to watch a movie in Edgar Rice Burroughs' house.
That's a party.
That's a party, which I was reading that the way we think of things today. Like, that's not safe. Like, we can't do that.
That's not safe. I'm dying to go to one of these parties now.
That would be so cool.
If you're somebody who has a giant home with a library and a dance hall inside, have me and Daniel over. Have me and Daniel, but he won't come.
What? No, sorry, it's the distance. What the hell? The hell are you saying to me?
I'd fight you if I didn't die from doing it.
If it wasn't against the WHO standards, I would punch you right in the mall right now. Eventually, he built a second house on Mecca Avenue there. He ride his horses around the property every morning, and he genuinely loved this place. He said, it took God millions of years to get Tarzan and me together, and I have to give him credit for pulling off at least one very successful job. I believe this is one of the loveliest spots in the world. He even wrote a... Don't you dare make a joke about... If you make a joke about Tarzan right now...
He would know about unsuccessful jobs. It's not a joke about Tarzana.
It's a joke about the people who live in Tarzana. He even wrote a song about it called My Own Tarzana Ranch.
Really, sing it for us.
It went a little something like this. Hang on, can you give me an A?
You got your A, you got your A.
Pine no more, my lassie, and my little lad be gay, which also means something completely different right now. For we're going back to our own Tarzana Ranch. To our own Tarzana Ranch far away.
Wow.
But he wasn't a songwriter.
Stick to the...
And he was barely a pulp writer.
Stick to the jungle, buddy.
They've got fun and games, not songs. In 1933, he was even elected mayor of Malibu, which I really hope it was an honorary title. He even let his new setting seep into his writing. He wrote something called The Girl from Hollywood, about a girl who leaves her small town just outside Hollywood to make it big in pictures and ends up losing touch with her family completely in the seediness and darkness of Los Angeles. And this was written way before Raymond Chandler laid down the law of who could write about seedy Los Angeles. Like he
Little Girls Lost.
Before Raymond Chandler writing all of his poems to Tarzana. Yeah, that's right. I downgraded it to poem. He even started to seep into the city around him. When in 1927, plans were put in place to build a post office in his part of the valley, but to do that, they needed an official name for that part of town. Originally, it was going to be called Runnymede, but there was already a Runnymede in Northern California, so to avoid confusion, they were going by Runnymede 2. Even runnier. For a while, they were going by that, but a group of locals started a petition to rename the area after their most prized citizen and his property, which was named after his prized creation, John Carter Wood. I mean Tarzan. So the petition went through, and on July 20th, 1928, they officially voted to rename that part of the valley Tarzana. Not everyone was on board with this. The Tarzana Library for years refused to carry any of his books because they dismissed it as pulp.
Really?
A
library.
A library. A library in the 30s before there were...
Before they had equal information?
Yeah. Libraries back then were just like ways for rich people to get maps of things. The Encino Tarzana Library now has a special Edgar Rice. I'll post a picture I took of it.
Is your hand sanitizer okay? It's not spilling out?
Oh, no. That's like $20 worth that just oozed out. It's okay. I'll just take the dirt home. The dirt's sanitary now. In 1936, some residents even started a petition of their own to rename the city to something classier, but nobody takes down Tarzan, so the name stuck. But back in the early 20s on the ranch, Burroughs, he was his happiest here than he had ever been in his life until he wasn't. He failed at being happy. Also, some people just can't escape their money troubles no matter how much money they make. So on March 26, 1923, he did something that was unheard of for authors at the time, and he turned himself into a corporation.
Oh, wow.
He started Edgar Rice Burroughs, Inc., to publish his own books and also manage all of his merchandise and the rights to his works for movies, TV, and radio.
It seems like a good move, right?
Well, people thought at the time this was insane because he was doing this. They felt churning out all these different types of media and merchandise that he ended up doing, the movies, the ice cream. It would end up competing against himself and dilute his success in writing. As we already discussed, these people could not have been more wrong. This is what most authors do now. So he was way ahead of everybody in doing this. This was just a way to protect his money and make more money, which was dumb. It was a new job. It was dumb according to the critics. Problem was, even with all this money, old Burroughs still liked buying horses, cars, and alcohol.
Right.
So in an attempt to get more money, in 1922, he started selling off parts of his property to be subdivided into new plots of land. So he sold 50 acres from where Tarzana Drive is down to Ventura Boulevard between Avenida Oriente and Mecca, which made room for 63 businesses and 139 homes.
Wow.
This was followed by even more the next year. They were marketing the area as the gateway to the sea. And I don't know how you get to the sea from there.
The gateway to the sea.
The ads read that these new plots were an artistic colony on high-class residential acres open to all who expressed artistic desires through the medium of picture, flowers, or vegetables, furniture, drug, plumbing, poetry, or the screen, but artists in each his own field, and each a lover of the beautiful. Chosen by Edgar Rice Burroughs, author of the Tarzan stories, Tarzana is the pride of the beautiful San Fernando Valley. Say it. Go. I dare you. Say it.
You know it is.
So nice of you to say. Do you know that you can buy one of these acres for $1,500, the price of a city lot in the poor district? So this didn't work, so he had some guy dressed as Tarzan getting people to buy stuff instead.
Did that work?
It worked a little bit, and if you wanted a plot of land, you would literally send a check or an envelope full of cash to Edgar Rice Burroughs' office, and you'd be a landowner. Like, that's all it took. That office was at 18354 Ventura Boulevard. It's still there as the headquarters of the Burroughs Company, where they run the trademark on Tarzan. They sue everyone.
That's still out here?
It's right across the street from, fittingly, the Black Bear Diner, where the sugar mill is. It's right across the street.
Is it?
It's there. I want to go there, and I dare them to sue me. I dare you.
I dare them to kick me out.
I'm going to make another George of the Jungle. I dare you to sue me.
You're trespassing my heart with your Tarzan stories.
How about I sue you for making me embarrassed in front of my macho friends? But his money troubles weren't getting any better, so in 1924, his family moved out of the old Otis Manor and into that smaller house they had built so they could use the manor as the clubhouse for the El Caballero country club that he built on the property for even more income. So then this whole tenuous situation came crashing down with, you guessed it, the Depression.
Boy.
What were you going to say? A big ape?
Kinda. All of this came crashing down when King Kong came on the scene. I always compare Tarzan and King Kong. They're like, oh, do you know each other? I always think that. Do you know each other?
Paths?
Yeah.
Did you go to college together?
Like when King Kong emerges from the gate, I want to turn Tarzan like, you know about this? You didn't say anything?
You didn't stop this?
You didn't stop this from happening?
You didn't kill him when he was a kid? Burroughs had invested heavily in the stock market, and he lost most of that during the crash.
Okay.
Then the country club went bankrupt, but he still had to pay the mortgage on it, so he lost the property, and the property was turned into a public golf course called the Tarzana Golf Course, which is now once again known as El Caballero. So we could, if they didn't keep people like us out, we could go golf there.
Waiting for a membership to come in the mail, in the weekly mail.
The next thing he lost was his wife in 1934.
Oh, boy.
Not like that, though. They got divorced.
So she's in a better place.
Beverly Hills. So he could remarry a woman half his age. Florence Gilbert Deerholt, who was the ex-wife of one of the actors from the Tarzan movie. And then they moved to Beverly Hills. So now with the family he had fought so hard for dissolved, he finally sold off what remained of Tarzana Ranch for good in the late 30s for $30,000 and moved with his new wife to Hawaii.
Whoa.
The safest place to be at the outbreak of World War II. Oh no, Pearl Harbor. Burroughs decides after Pearl Harbor to take it upon himself to provide his worth once more to the military and help America win the war.
Okay.
He started with divorcing his new young wife, and then he joined
him.
You're welcome, Uncle Sam. Are you single?
That, Heinrich Himmler.
Then he joined up as the oldest war correspondent in the country, and he did reports on the troops in the Pacific.
Really?
Yeah. So apparently he also covered the Marion Parker murder for the Hearst newspapers when that happened.
Little Marion Parker.
So he had experienced newspapers writing a little bit.
Yeah. Trying to keep your fries warm by stuffing old pages into your lap.
I don't want them to blow away because who knows what's on them. And I'm going to self-immolate after this. This is the kindling.
I'm any message from Mission Impossible.
I'm a movie by the Coen brothers. But that old heart of his started acting up again, and after a series of heart attacks, he had to come home from war.
Oh, that's right. He had a murmur.
Yeah.
And a murmur. A moo-moo.
He's got a heart moo-moo. That's probably what the physician from 1890 Arizona Territory cavalry.
A heart moo-moo.
Sorry, but you got a heart moo-moo. You got to go home now. He had to come home, not anywhere else to do. He went back to as closest to his precious Tarzana as he could. Not so precious Encino.
Oh, yeah.
Because he didn't have the house there, so he couldn't buy land in Tarzana. So.
And Encino Man hadn't been made yet, so it wasn't hip.
Isn't that funny that that's kind of an ape thing?
Yep.
Huh.
He's a caveman. If you want me to give my 4-hour criticism on Encino Man, the film.
If you want me to read my thesis on Encino Man relating to Tarzan and how we really live. A Daniel Zaffron thesis. He continued his writing here, and he even used some of his wartime experience in his work such as Tarzan and the Foreign Legion.
Oh my God.
He became a little...
Suit up, Tarzan.
Put on your most lethal loincloth. He became a little cantankerous in his later days, referring to himself as OB, which people assumed was Old Burroughs, but it was actually Old Bastard.
Whoa.
He wrote in 1948, 52 years ago, an army doctor gave me 6 months to live, and I'll bet the goddamn old drunk has been dead for 20 years.
Get him. That'll show a guy who tried to help me.
That'll show that doctor who saved your life. But not long after that old heart of his finally caught up with him, and on March 19th, 1950, he died of a heart attack in bed reading the Sunny Funny pages.
Poor guy.
In Encino.
He was laughing so hard at like Little Nemo or
Family Circus.
Yeah. The old Family Circus.
His ashes were spread under the walnut tree in front of his Ventura Boulevard office. Edgar Rice Burroughs' legacy, though he's not entirely as popular now as he once was, can't be understated.
Oh, yeah.
His His book sold over 100 million copies. It was printed in 56 languages. At the height of his popularity, his paperback books accounted for 3% of all the paperback sales in the country.
Wow.
Making him the most read American author of the first half of the 20th century.
Yeah.
And it was easy to see why, because like I said, they're so easy to read. Mm-hmm. Ray Bradbury thought that he was the most important author of the 20th century, and even Jane Goodall was such a fan that she was jealous when Tarzan married Jane instead of her.
The other Jane.
I'm more qualified. I'm the obvious choice.
Yeah, I've been writing papers for years.
He was prolific. He was crazy prolific. He wrote almost 100 things, including, I believe, 68 books, not including an unfinished Tarzan book that they found after he died. And he created 3 massive franchises. There was John Carter, there was Tarzan, and then he also did a whole Hollow Earth Pellucidar series, which was also very popular and scientifically factual. He also became the first person to do crossovers, when he once had Tarzan visit the Hollow Earth of Pellucidar.
That's pretty funny.
It's pronounced. Yeah,
and all of this came from him wanting to, like, if I write weird enough,
they'll pay me.
In
his prime, he was writing an average of 3 books a year.
Damn, that's hard.
He kept a ledger to keep track of how many words he wrote during a day to make sure he met his deadlines, and he was writing about 10 to 12 new pages every single day. His theory was, if you write one story, it may be bad. If you write 100 stories, you have the odds in your favor.
Yeah.
He did all of this for his family.
Right.
If he hadn't started being paid for writing these stories, he would have just moved on to find something else that would. And this all became sort of a local family business. His son John illustrated the books eventually. His daughter played Jane, like I said.
Yeah.
His grandkids went to CSUN. So it was a local sort of enterprise, and the city values him right back. They unveiled the Tarzan stamp at the Tarzana post office, which you and I once went to a long time ago, and there was we're like, why is all this Tarzan stuff?
Right.
And one lady turned around and she's like, Tarzan lived here.
That's right. I remember that. Yeah. I remember being scolded by somebody at the post office. I couldn't I didn't know that it was.
Yeah, she was mortally wounded that we didn't know that Edgar Rice Burroughs lived in Tarzana.
And what's her name?
Make the connection.
Jane Burroughs.
The main strip of Ventura that runs through Tarzana was named the Safari Walk in 1998. He also has a crater on Mars named after him.
Really?
Which I would literally kill for. But you can't discuss Edgar Rice Burroughs without the controversies. Anytime a white author writes something in the early 1900s that takes place in Africa, you know you're in for something.
Oh, yeah, for sure. What is this, a cat in an H.P. Lovecraft story?
What?
Do you know what the cat's name is?
No, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, awful. Anyways, go ahead.
There were some not so flattering portrayals of Africans in the books, and even deeper than that, the idea of a white guy born of British nobility that grows up in to rule the jungles of Africa is very sticky, but also very of the time. This isn't more racist than the accepted level of racism at the time, which is to say it's still racist. You know, like it's not
trying harder to be the most racist thing.
Exactly. He wasn't H.P. Lovecraft. But it also didn't help that this was around the time of white flight and all the racial housing covenants. So knowing that he was like, people like Mars, I'm going to write about Mars. Yeah. Like you can't help but feel like something seeped in. Like you kind of knew a little bit about what you meant by all this. On a less important level, the book was also controversial amongst anthropologists who felt that a man who could swing around trees like that could never have been raised by apes. That's ridiculous. He must have been raised by orangutans. Get it right.
Get it right, guy who's just doing this for money and did a little research.
Yeah. Get it right, the guy who probably never even saw a chimp. The man himself was also pretty conservative. He was very outspoken against Japanese internment, but he was also very pro-eugenics, which apparently most people were at the time, which means it's right. The only reason he didn't have sympathy for the Nazis was because he hated Germans so much. But putting all that aside, if you can, you can't deny the impact he's made on pop culture. Like I was saying, you can dismiss pulp, as a lot of people do, but name one thing that T.S. Eliot wrote. Yeah. Even if you can, name one person who has actually read it and enjoyed it. Everybody knows Edgar Rice Burroughs' most famous creation, and you probably even hear the roar in your head when you hear that name.
Yeah.
John Carter of Mars. Yeah, that's Edgar Rice Burroughs.